The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to our third webinar entitled Funding Sustainable Success. I'm delighted you can join us this afternoon. We are joined by two panellists today, the first of which is Alexandra Hammond, who's Associate Director of Sustainability at Accenture Guys and St Thomas NHS Foundation Trust, and our second panellist is Beth Williams, Programme Coordinator for Salix. Today's webinar is going to focus on sustainable funding, so we're going to be looking at the barriers for investment and funding in the NHS. Many of you registered today will probably be aware of the difficulty to fund innovation such as energy efficiency, waste management, heat and power, anything to do with transport. The difficulties in the NHS are abundantly clear as we've gone through the campaign. So we wanted to organise today's webinar to look at how we can look at this area and have two panellists to talk a little bit further about their approach to this and how it can support you moving forward. The panellists will speak to around 15 minutes each, and then we'll put some questions forward at the end. If you would like to put any questions forward, there should be an area for you to kind of wave your hand up or forward a question at any point, and we will keep questions to the last 15 minutes of the webinar. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Alexandra Hammond, Associate Director of Sustainability at Accenture Guys and St Thomas. And Alexandra recently put together an article for the HSJ around funding and financial barriers, and she's going to give us a bit of an understanding of how her expertise and her experience of this. So over to Alexandra.
Great, thank you, Scott. Hi everyone, my name is Alexandra Hammond and I work for Accenture, which is a part of Guys and St Thomas's NHS Foundation Trust. And I've had quite a lot of experience with funding energy efficiency and sustainability projects, and also for Guys and St Thomas's, but also across other organizations. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So I've been asked to look at sort of three main areas, which are around opportunities for funding for NHS organizations, improving more with less. I think this is a common theme in conversations around the NHS at the moment, and overcoming financial barriers to success. So what can we do about some of the challenges that are being faced in the NHS? Wonder if this maybe looks like you're a finance director or you're head of procurement, somebody saying, you know, we need savings right this minute, and how are you going to deliver them? And a lot of the time, the savings that we are best positioned to deliver require a bit of investment. There are some, you know, quick win, no cost savings, and those should be definitely looked at as well. Those should be the priority, but you know, there are projects across the NHS that we are, you know, are very replicable and well established, with very clear paybacks that we may need to be going to them to say, well, we actually want it now. We need the cash now in order for us to make these investments to deliver savings. So what's the scale of the opportunity here? I mean, for those of us working in the NHS, it's quite hard to avoid conversations like the Carter report, Carter review, about how we have many opportunities for improving efficiency. The estates and facility element of that report was quite interesting. I think it deserves some attention and you know, and some improvement from the Department of Health. But certainly they are committed to addressing the area of energy efficiency as part of an opportunity for NHS Trust to be more efficient and better value. Also, you know, looking at 2015-16 utility spend, which notably was quite low compared to about £10 million less than the year before. We saw a dip in energy prices. But if we just looked at that, so with a very sort of conservative cost baseline of £570 million for energy spent last year, a 10% reduction on that would deliver a £57 million savings. And that's quite a significant piece of the pie and a real contribution we can make. So how are we going to do it? There is cash available. This is the thing that we must be clear about. Beth will talk in more detail about Salix financing, which is a really fantastic option for many organizations. But there's a bit of a feeling amongst organizations, I think, at the moment that there's nothing we can do. We have no money. We have to just put our nose to the grindstone and get the day-to-day done. And actually, this is exactly when we need to be taking a step back, thinking a bit long-term, and saying, okay, what is our strategy for the future? How does this fit into sustainable transformation plans? How can we contribute? How can we be part of the solution rather than kind of hide ourselves away in the state's offices and things like that? So, like I said, there's zero interest finance available, notably through Salix, but also potentially through others. Energy savings agreements, so kind of a shared savings or a service agreement. I'll talk about that in slightly more detail in a moment. But we're seeing things come through from places like the Green Investment Bank, where there's opportunities for sort of service agreements for energy savings. Banks, lenders, people are keen to lend on this. There are good returns for them. So a lot of the big technology companies offer finance, and the banks. This tends to be the higher rate of finance, so it's worth understanding what all of these things mean. But maybe they're willing to take a bit more risk as well. So also there's partnerships, sort of things, people who will install things like solar panels on your buildings for in exchange for a period of time that they can keep them there, and that's sometimes a good option. It can be tricky for the NHS because we don't always know the future of our estates, but if it's something where you do know or you have some level of security, then it can be an option as well. Store and triads, looking at demand management, running generators potentially at peak times to provide a bit of more resilience to the grid. These are all other sort of revenue generating opportunities for the NHS. So we're all in this together. We're all feeling the pain of this time, and I think it's really important to speak to each other. It's great that you're on this webinar and you're understanding what's happening, and keen to find out ways to break down barriers. There's lots going on. My contact details will be at the end of this presentation, and I do encourage you, if there's things, if you need help, if you need an example of a successful business case, if you need somebody to, your finance director to speak to our finance director and say, is this all a bunch of hogwash, or is this really something we should be onto? Please just call me or email me, and we can set up enabling things like that. But really importantly, in the process of engaging your organization, this is from my own experience, but ways that I've found that have been really successful is engaging senior champions. So getting people on the board aware of what you're trying to do, getting them, sometimes we can be kind of afraid of people in senior parts of the organization, that we feel that they're too busy to be bothered with us. But we're in business planning right now, the NHS is, and we're looking at next year, and if you can come to senior leaders and say, I have a solution, I have a way of saving money, you are at the front of the queue, because we've been through many years of cost cutting and savings in the NHS, and more it's getting difficult. So, don't be shy. Go and speak to people. Go and raise this, with your managers or with senior leaders, and depending on your level of comfort. But, it's not a bad idea to just get in a meeting with your finance director and just say, what do you think of this? I've got some ideas, and I think we could do these great things, and it's going to take some investment, but we've got a plan for this. So yeah, engaging senior champions. Make sure it's not a surprise when it gets to the board if you take this that far. Also, link your messaging, link what you're trying to do with what the organization is trying to do. We mustn't sit on the fringes with sustainability. We mustn't stay, we're sort of here when the organization has a bit of extra time and feels like they want to engage with us. We are part of the solution. We are part of the success of the organization. And so it's really important to make sure that you listen to what senior leaders are saying. What is it? So it might be, how are we going to meet our clinical targets? How are we going to improve quality? How are we going to ensure the resilience of our buildings? And all of these things can contribute to that. The energy efficiency can be linked to many of the organization's objectives, which is really important. Develop your business case. Be clear about what the benefits are. If you need help with this, Like I say, I'm very happy to support. There are lots of successful business cases out there that are relatively easy to replicate. Let's not spend weeks and weeks working on things that others have done. And also, there are frameworks and support. So if you want to do a bigger project and you need to go to procurement to do that and potentially to OJU, there are frameworks established that you can utilize, and they provide really good value, quick access into the market. Essentia, which is part of Guys and Thomas's, offers an energy performance contracting framework. I'll give you a couple of examples of stuff that we've done, so if that's of interest, do let me know. So here's some work with GSTT, my home trust, and the place where I've led the sustainability program for the last nearly 8 years. If you're not familiar with us, we're based in central London, right across from the Houses of Parliament and also next to the Shard at London Bridge. We also have a huge number of community sites, 116 to be exact. So we really have a real mix of clinical and sort of organizational priorities. So we've done a lot around how we frame the conversation around sustainability. If you've seen a presentation from me, you've probably seen this before. I use it a lot, but I think it's really important. This is the first line of our sustainability strategy as an organization, and it links back to this kind of, make sure the messaging about sustainability is about health, it's about what your organization cares about. So, the best healthcare, which is what we're all trying to achieve, will run efficiently, we'll use resources wisely, we'll foster healthy living, and that's for staff as well as patients, and we'll embed long-term thinking to provide patients with the best possible care. Long-term thinking is an interesting one. A lot of times we're in this sort of catch-22 where we know we need to make investments, but nobody's willing to think 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line, and that can be a real challenge for us. So, having a conversation to say, well, we're in this for the long game. The NHS is being challenged in its sustainable transformation plan to look at what the next 5, 10 years, 15, 20 years will look like, and this is a good time to have conversations about some of the longer term objectives. So, link it to carbon targets, link it to estate resilience, backlog maintenance. We want to make sure that our services don't fall down when we need them, and that's really should be our top priority, and that you will find will be one of the top priorities for boards, and if this can help, it's a really good thing. So these are some of the kind of messages that are flying around Guys and St. Thomas's at the moment, and we've really tried hard to link sustainability to these messages. So we have this project called Fit for the Future, which is all about safety and quality and efficiency, and we've really linked our program into this sort of wholeheartedly to make sure that we fit with the messaging. So the 3 messages around here are about saving money. We're doing that. We're doing. I'll tell you a little about it in a second. But we're doing some. We're always looking for ways to build in efficiencies. Maintaining quality and safety. This is really important. That we can. So we're doing a project at Guys and St. Thomas's right now to upgrade the BMS, building management systems, in operating theaters, which seems like a scary thing to do. You just, who wants to touch an operating theater? You want to make sure, but that's the problem. Very few people have nobody's touched the operating theaters, the building management systems, in too long. So these operating theaters are, in need of maintenance, and the BMS outstations there need to be upgraded. So the clinicians are thrilled because they know that they're working on it in a theater that perhaps doesn't have the backup or the resilience that they would want it to have. So, we're having a lot of positive clinical engagement, and we're really going to make our patients a lot more safe. And then also the organizational efficiency messaging. I mean, honestly, there's never been more interest from a high-level part of the organization in doing things to save money. So if you've got a project and nobody's listening to you, maybe you need to make sure that you're speaking to really senior people in the organization and saying, look, what can we do to progress this? So here's just a little bit about the Guys and St. Thomas's energy performance contract that we're doing. So this is where we're doing, one part of that is the upgrade to building management systems, which theaters and all sorts of places across the organization. But we got this business case through because it delivers guaranteed savings. Our finance director can say to me, will I have £1 million off my energy bills? And I can say with all confidence, absolutely you will. So it's also helping us reduce our carbon. We've done some big low-hanging fruit stuff already. So we had already done 2 big CHP engines. We've done a whole. It started really quite enthusiastically on LED lighting changeovers and things. So there were still, there was a lot of this. We were still already delivering savings. The energy performance contract started to look at the more complex engineering solutions that were available. And it's been tricky because trying to get motors changed and louvers organized in old hospitals that are live in patient environments is not always easy, but it's really necessary, and it's really part of making sure that our buildings are really, really fantastically well positioned to be good healthcare facilities for the future. So I won't tell you too much about this, but this project was funded through the trust funds themselves. We had a loan out from the ITFF, the Independent Trust Financing Facility, which is a financing option available to foundation trusts, so we've used part of that loan to fund this. So the organization sort of kept it within GSTT control. I think if we were doing this business case now, the solution might be a bit different, and I think we'd probably be using more Salix finance and potentially other avenues as well. Another project that we've done that is a good example of a big organization taking action is at United Lincolnshire Hospital, and this is three acute sites, nearly £1 million guaranteed savings, a reduction of 22% in their energy consumption, and this is the complexity of working with PFI partners. If you have a challenge, it's very likely that somebody else has faced this challenge previously, and if that challenge is proving daunting, I'm really happy to have a chat with you and see if there's a sort of an easy solution. Sometimes these solutions aren't easy. Sometimes they take some time and effort and perseverance, but I really do believe they're worth doing. So Lincoln is applying for Salix funding for most of their project, which is really good, and I think will be a really fantastic improvement to their facilities there. So some things to keep in mind when it comes to financing. Number one, I would say, is consider the 2019 changes to accountancy rules. This affects not just the NHS, but it does affect us. It's about leases. So it's about how debt appears on balance sheets, and this is something that will become very, very, well, it's probably really already on the radar of the finance team in your organization. But be very clear about how your project may or may not impact this, and you may want to come up with options. So it essentially boils down to, if you manage the asset, if it belongs to you as the trust and you have most control over it, then it will appear on your balance sheet. If you don't manage the asset, somebody manages it on your behalf and they have the main area of control, then it's seen more as a service agreement. There's a lot more nuance to that, believe me, but that's sort of the bare bones of it. But if you want to know information, it's called IFRS 16, and there's lots of information on the internet. But sort of building on from this, really important to understand the full cost of your solution. Make sure you know everything that is going to be entailed. If you're going with a framework, understand from the framework what exactly the costs are, and not just the cost up front, but the long-term full life cycle cost. Are they going to take a portion of the savings? Are they going to charge you an ongoing management fee? Really important. And also, treat these projects with the sort of gravity that they need to be treated. So if you're doing a big project, make sure that you build in the capacity to manage that and execute it. So a team, you may need a project manager internally, you may need some support from your engineering team or external support. So build this in, make sure there are no surprises. I'm almost finished here, but just some good news, which I'm pleased to tell you. NHS Improvement, which used to be called the TDA, well, incorporated what used to be the TDA, has changed their qualifying criteria for big projects, big energy projects. So they've sort of established that energy performance contracts are actually a valuable and good way of getting this investments made. So they've now raised the threshold to costs for projects to £15 million. Most projects that we're looking at are well under this threshold, and so it means that if you are a non-foundation trust, it's unlikely that you have to go to TDA or NHSI approval for your project, and that is a huge weight off a lot of people's shoulders. If anyone's done a TDA approval process, or I should call it NHSI approval process, it can be protracted, let's just say that. Also, you know, learn what others are doing, cite what's being done out there, make people, you know, make your organization feel like if they're not doing this, they're really missing out, and they're really not, you know, there's lots of good things happening. And, you know, this is obvious, but make sure you carefully consider your funding options. Look at them all, consider them all, and engage your organization. Ask your finance director questions about it. You know, make sure you come up with a solution that fits with how your organization is looking to pursue this. And I think that's all for me. So those are my contact details, and please do email me if I've said anything today that would be having questions about, or if I can assist in any way. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Well, the slides will be made available within the next 48 hours, so anybody who wants to contact Alexandra, that will be available. And do please drop her a line or follow up on this, because she's got a vast experience in this, and I think, as you can tell from the slides, a great knowledge and understanding of how you can overcome this. So without any further ado, we're going to move on to our next panellist, which is Beth Williams, Programme Coordinator at Salix, and she's going to talk a little bit about what Salix are doing. Briefly, Alexandra touched on some things there around Lincoln, so Beth's going to talk a little bit more about what they can do and how they can help this, and it's over to you, Beth.
Hello. Thank you, Matt, for inviting us to be part of this webinar, and for Alex for giving such an interesting talk just there. Just to introduce myself again, I'm Beth Williams. I'm the Programme Coordinator for the NHS team at Salix Finance. And just so you're aware, all these slides are going to be available after the webinar as well. So this is just an overview of what I'm going to be speaking about for the next 15 minutes. I kind of want to give you a bit of an overview of who Salix are and exactly how our funding model works, and some of the support that we can offer trust and foundation trusts to reduce their energy spend. I'm then going to talk a bit about some of the resources we have on offer, such as our knowledge sharing area, and then finally just a little summary of our online application process. So just to start with an introduction to who we are an independently publicly funded company that was established in 2004, and we were set up originally to provide the upfront capital for public sector organisations to install energy efficiency technology. And the way we do this is through providing, as Alex said, 100% interest-free loans to the public sector, and these are repaid through savings to the energy bill, so to make it kind of an investor-save option, very kind of cost-neutral for the organisations. We previously received our funding from DEC, but now we get it from the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. And we also get our funding from the Department of Education and Scottish and Welsh Government for some of our other funding programmes. As I said, I'm going to focus on NHS Trust and Foundation Trust, but we also fund local authorities and schools and academies, and also universities across England, Scotland and Wales. And what we do is we fund over 120 different energy efficiency technologies, which I'll go through in a bit more detail in a moment. So this is just really to demonstrate exactly where we fit, and this is an energy efficiency pyramid, and at the bottom you've got those kind of no-cost, low-cost solutions to reducing your energy consumption, and this includes things like behaviour change, and above this we've got the projects that require some sort of capital investment, and this is the area that Salix focuses on, projects that require you to invest in order to save some energy. And at the very top here, we've got the energy generation projects, such as renewables. Now, this is an area we don't traditionally fund at the moment, and that's just because the government funded, there's other government schemes in place at the moment, such as feed-in tariffs and renewable heat incentives to kind of help support these sorts of projects. So as I said, we fund 120 different technologies. There's a full list on our website that's available to download, but this is just the top 10 of projects we funded in the last 3 years. And as I said, we fund projects that range from very kind of low-tech solutions such as insulation to very kind of high-tech, high-cost projects such as combined heat and power. As you can see from this list, we've funded a lot of internal and external lighting projects recently. And this just kind of demonstrates that these are really projects that have a good business case and really are kind of make sense for the organisation to implement. It's worth noting as well for NHS organisations, we've been funding a lot of combined heat and power projects, a lot of building energy and management systems, heat recovery systems, and variable speed drives, some of those projects that Alex was talking about earlier that they've been doing in Guy's and St Thomas's. This list here that we have on our website is also not definitive. We understand that the sector is continuously growing and new technologies come into the market all the time. So if there is a technology that has energy saving, then just get in touch with our technical team and they'll be happy to have a look at it and potentially add it to the list as well. So this just gives a little bit of an overview of how our funding model works. So it first starts with public sector organisations, so a trust or foundation trust, developing a project they're interested in doing and then approaching us for funding. Now we can fund up to 100% of the project if it fits within our compliance criteria. So for hospitals and the NHS in England, this would be a 5-year technical payback and the cost to save a tonne of COT would be under £100. Now we can fund projects that are potentially over this if the client makes a contribution as well to the project. And it's also worth noting that we really want to encourage a kind of holistic approach to energy efficiency here as well. So if you have some projects that have much longer payback, then they can be combined with those kind of quick wing, low-hanging fruit to kind of average out to fit within the compliance criteria as well. Okay, so once you've applied for our funding and we've committed it, you then have 9 months to go ahead with the project, and you can use whichever consultant or supplier that you would like to use for your own procurement processes as well. And then once the project completes, the loan is only starts to be repaid to Salix afterwards, and this is just to make sure that you're actually experiencing energy savings for the project. And those repayments then go back to Salix, and then we then use them to fund further projects in the public sector. So that's why you can see this kind of cycle going on, because we're trying to use that money over and over again to make sure as many energy efficiency projects can take place as possible. And we're really proud that for every £1 of funding we've used in the public sector, it's actually saved the public sector £4 now. So as I said, we've been going since 2004, and in the last 14 years we started with just 19 pilot clients, and we now have over 1,400 different clients, and we've allocated over £460 million worth of funding, and these are expected to save our clients over £116 million each year and 600 tonnes of CO2. So that's some figures that we're really proud of. And especially in the NHS, this is an area we've been working with a lot recently, and we've worked with now over 55 different NHS trusts or foundation trusts, and we've loaned out over £47 million worth of funding. And these are going to be saving the trust over £194 million over the lifetime of the project. So just to talk a bit about some of the other support that we offer our clients, we run lots of regional workshops, and this is just to kind of have this networking going on between public sector organisations. So just to kind of follow on from what Alex was saying, we don't want to be rewriting the rules each time a client's doing a project. So we really want to put you in touch with someone else who's done similar projects so you can hear the sort of experiences they had, how they managed to get approval for that project, and things like that. We also have an in-house technical team which can help with business case development as well. So we have a business case template, and we also have a lot of guidance for some of the common technologies such as internal lighting, street lighting, and CHP as well. We also have a lot of best practice calculations as well that you can use, and this is just to kind of give you a good estimate for the energy savings that you're expected to make with the project. And this is again to help the kind of business case when you're taking it to kind of internal meetings in your organisations. And lastly, we've also got a kind of knowledge sharing area, which I'll talk in a bit more detail about, that includes kind of case studies and project knowledge slides. So The support that we also offer with our organisations is that we're happy to meet trust throughout all stages of the project's development. So even if you're not quite ready to submit an application to us, we encourage you to submit an expression of interest on our website. And this allows our technical team to just have a look over some of the information you have for the project and offer you a bit of advice about the sort of information we will be needing to see when you make a full application. We also allows us to kind of potentially meet with people in your trust and help with that engagement in your organisation in order to get approval for the project. As I said, we can work strategically with our clients on lots of larger projects. So potentially if you want to do a very large number of energy efficiency projects across your estate, then we can help and support these over a number of different years and support your carbon management plans or your estate strategies. And lastly, it's also worth noting, I've said this before, but we really want to connect our clients with other clients as well to help kind of build the knowledge between different organisations. And that brings us slightly onto the knowledge share and case study area of our website. So this is an online portal that's only accessible to other public sector organisations. It links to our project knowledge slides, also our case studies, the best practice calculations, and also lets you know about some of the events we're going to be coming up to. There's about 80 different case studies available to download, and this showcases some of the success of other organisations and sort of energy efficiency projects they've been doing. It gives an overview of the project, also the energy and the cost savings. It also talks a bit about some of the other benefits as well. So, for example, the improved in physical environment for staff and patients as a result of doing these projects. And this is really for you to share within your trust to help, again, gain support for the sort of project you're looking to do. And this is an example of one of the, just a bit of summary information for one of the case studies we've done recently with Imperial College Healthcare. So this is the trust we've been working with since 2009, and we've funded over £7.4 million worth of projects so far. And these have covered a whole range of technology from BEM systems to LED lighting and variable speed drives. And these projects are estimated to save them about £1.9 million each year and pay back in 3.8 years. So this really helps kind of like support the business case that other trusts are doing these sort of projects. Also on our website are project knowledge slides, and we've got about 300 of these. And these offer a bit more kind of technical details about projects as well. So they include kind of before and after project details, the energy and financial savings, also a bit of information about the contractors that organisation use and some of the lessons learned and their experiences of using them. And it also, very importantly, includes some contact details, so you can get in touch with someone at that organisation and really talk through the project and find out how it went and get that sort of, if you have any particular questions as well that might be relevant to the project you're developing. Okay, lastly, I'm just going to talk about quickly the SALIX application process. This is all done online, and we aim to give you an answer within 2 weeks of you submitting an application. It's a really simple process, and this involves you logging onto the website and creating an online account. We then ask you to complete a compliance tool. Now, this is just a simple Excel spreadsheet, and where you can add a bit of information about your project type and also some of the kilowatt savings that you are expecting to get from your project. And this just allows, it just automatically calculates whether the project is compliant with that 5-year technical payback I mentioned earlier and the 100 tonne saved, or £100 per tonne of CO2 saved. Now, it's also worth noting that we don't actually have a maximum loan amount you can apply for, so as long as it fits within that compliance criteria, then we could potentially fund the project. And if a project's over £100,000, then we do also ask for a business case. So a business case is just, again, we have a template that this can be used, that you can fill in, and we'll offer guidance on how to complete this. And this also gets sent off to our external consultants, Atkins, who also will check the project. And so along with the supporting information, which will just be any information that will back up the figures that you put into the compliance tool. So, for example, lighting surveys or feasibility studies for a CHP. So once you've got the compliance tool, in the case if it's over 100k and the supporting information, then you just complete the simple application form, which just involves contact details for you and someone at the trust who can authorise the application, and then send it through to us. We'll just do a technical assessment, and then we if we're happy with the project, we'll commit funding. Just to say that this technical assessment is a very kind of two-way process. We don't like to say blanket no to a project. What we do is we ask for more information, offer guidance on how the application can be improved. So once we've checked the project and we've committed funding for it, you'll receive a commitment letter that lets you know that funding's been secured for the project. As I said, you then have 9 months to complete the project, and once the project's completed, that's when we typically pay out the funding. And this is just because we understand that, you know, as projects develop, costs can change, potentially the scope can change, so it's just to take account of that. But we do also understand that you might need to make payments before the end of the project. So interim payments are also available. You just need to let us know how much and when you'll be needing them. The loan repayments are calculated based on the energy savings of the project, and they only start once the project is completed. They're collected via direct debit, and there's 10 instalments over 5 years. So that takes into consideration the 5-year payback period. So as I said, we work with over 55 different trusts throughout England, and this is just some quotes from some of the organisations we work with that we're particularly proud of. We would like to really have a good relationship with our clients and really share knowledge between them as well. So just in summary, the funding is available throughout the year and you can apply at any time. There's no maximum loan amount, it's just whether it fits within the 5-year payback criteria and the 100 tonnes CO2 saved. We want to be there in terms of supporting our clients, so just help you with your carbon management plans and also over a number of different years if you've got very large projects you're thinking of doing. So if anyone has any questions, I'd just like to thank Matt and Alex, and my contact details are there, so please get in touch if you've got any more questions.
Thanks very much, Beth. Thank you very much for that presentation, very enjoyable. Right, I've got some quick questions that we've had sent. A couple sent in, but a couple that I picked up on through the presentation I'd like to ask. The first one was to Alexandra. You mentioned there about you know, having been at the front of the queue and looking to save, given the recent report into procurement and saving monies for the NHS. What I wanted to ask, quite well, straight to the point really, is how do you get the attention of a member of the board? You mentioned about be able for them to listen and take on board the ideas and saving money and stuff, but you know, what's the process to actually win over your chairman, your board member to actually help you with the funding? How do you go about that? What's the process?
Well, I think it depends a little bit on your organization, of course, but I would say a good first step is there's often meetings that happen. So, for example, within our trust, we have a monthly team briefing where members of the board come along and clinical staff and non-clinical staff come, and we sort of talk about what's happening in the organization, targets, things like that. And board members always attend those events. So it's an opportunity, if you don't know them or you don't feel that you have a sort of an in with them through some people within your department, it's an opportunity to sort of catch them and say, you know, hello, how can we have a chat? But you know, don't forget that your board members are there to you know, deliver the best possible services to the hospital, and you know, it may be that you want to go through your senior managers within you know, your directorate or whatever, but I think it's important to find people who think that what you're doing is important. And sometimes we don't know about those people. It might be somebody in the clinical team. It might be your, you know, if you work in the States, it might be your director, or it might be, you know, somebody who's kind of a, you know, just somebody who knows people in the organization. I would say that, you know, worst case scenario, just get in touch with your finance director, find out who they are if you don't know, and say, can we arrange a meeting? Because I've got some ideas, and you know, outline what your ideas might be, and then go to that meeting and give them your ideas.
Right. Okay. One of the questions I want to put to Beth, and you may have covered this briefly in your presentation, but you mentioned the funding that's available to trusts and to engage in this in the 5-year sort of payback, etc. What I wanted to ask is there any concerns, or is funding going to be available, say it's in the foreseeable future? Is there any plans to change that, given, well, Brexit, for instance, and will funding be there, for instance, in 2018-19 moving forward?
So as far, yes, funding is available, and we've got funding secured with our government partners. We've got very good relationship with our government funders, so for example, the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. And yes, funding's here, and it can be used kind of this year and next year, and we're committing funding for some of the larger projects right up into 2017-18.
So basically, if there's any trust that are just embarking on finding out what they want to do, they can apply this year, next year, and
yeah. So yeah, I would encourage them to kind of get in touch if they're thinking of doing a project, even if they're at a very early stage. Because so for example, some of our clients we've been working with, they've come to us, a year ago when they're starting to think about projects, and it's only now that we're actually kind of committing funding for the project. But we've been there throughout that whole process, just give them that reassurance that funding is going to be available when they need it.
Yeah. Finally, just a question to Alexandra. Do you believe that, from a government perspective, from an NHS perspective, that there is enough emphasis being placed on energy efficiency, sustainability, and if not, what do you think we need to see over the next 12 months in terms of policy around this and support for trusts that are looking to provide frontline savings and spend on patient care through sustainable development? Do you think there is something that needs to be done further, or any action plans that we can be taking?
It's a great question, and the short answer is I don't think enough is being done to emphasize the scope and the potential here. In a perfect world, we would be held to carbon reduction targets that the NHS has set, and there would be, these would be scrutinized and there'd be consequences if we didn't hit those targets. Our carbon reduction targets as part of the UK Climate Change Act that we've all signed up to in the NHS aren't really scrutinized by anyone. But I think the reality is that we need to keep on with the conversation about what can be done and the success. I think we need to look to projects like NHS Sustainability Day is a really great way of raising the profile of what we're doing, making it relevant to the whole organization. It'd be great, the SDU, the Sustainable Development Unit, has a role to play here. I think there's more that they could do to influence our policymakers as well and be a voice for this. But we must lean on people like Carter, and we must say, this is what's being done. And what's so great about this? What's so great about the opportunities that we have is that by doing what we want to do, we not only save money, we improve the way the organization runs, and there's no negative. We're not saving money by getting rid of staff or reducing the amount of time people are spending on wards. We're saving money by doing the right thing. So having that conversation and keeping it really positive. I think we often go into these conversations slightly defeated before we even start, and actually it's our responsibility as people who have been given the energy or the sustainability remit to make this conversation really relevant. And I know that can be scary, so if you want some tips, call me or email me. I'll tell you some more stories.
Brilliant. Well, thank you to both our panelists, Alexandra and to Beth. Thank you very much for joining us, and to everyone who joined us. I hope you have enjoyed the webinar. The slides and everything will be available in the next 48 hours, and we'll tweet them from our Day for Action, and we'll also have them up on the website and mail them out to people. I hope everyone, again, benefit from joining us today. Our next webinar is going to be on February the 21st at 12:15, and we'll be looking at sustainable transport and travel plans and looking at the barriers to improve transport, car parking, and issues around sustainable transport for staff and patients in the NHS. So all that's left for me to do is say thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we may see you at one of our roadshows or see some action taken on March 23rd for sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.